Hi, I'm Eala, and these are 3 things you don't know about me.
Before we go any further, I want you to pause and really think about what you believe success looks like, because the image you have in your mind might be completely wrong. When people scroll past highlight clips of Eala, they see perfection. Flawless sponsorship visuals from Nike, polished magazine covers from Vogue Philippines and Tatler, global endorsements from Globe Telecom and Bank of the Philippine Islands, luxury travel, international tournaments, fame, prestige, a life that looks smooth, effortless, almost cinematic, like a perfectly edited dream. And that is exactly why what you're about to hear might completely change the way you see everything, because that dream is only the surface. And underneath it is something far more intense, far more uncomfortable, and far more real. Because the truth is, what looks glamorous from the outside is actually one of the most controlled, demanding, psychologically exhausting lifestyles a human being can live. Competing inside the Women's Tennis Association is not about luxury. Because what most people call success is actually a carefully controlled environment where pressure never switches off. Not for a day, not for an hour, sometimes not even for a single quiet thought. The lifestyle that looks glamorous from a distance is actually structured down to the smallest detail. When to wake, when to eat, when to train, when to recover, when to rest, when to push through pain that would normally signal someone to stop. Nothing is casual. Nothing is spontaneous. Every decision is filtered through one brutal question: will this make performance better or worse? And slowly, without even noticing it, life stops feeling flexible and starts feeling engineered. It becomes a system, a machine that demands consistency more than comfort, discipline more than emotion, and endurance more than enjoyment. And here's the part that most people never realize. Once you step into that system, you don't just participate in it, you adapt to it. And eventually, you become dependent on it, because slowing down begins to feel more terrifying than exhaustion itself. Now imagine making the decision that begins all of this, not as an adult with life experience, but as a child standing at the edge of everything familiar. At an age when most people are still discovering who they are, she was already deciding who she was willing to stop being. Leaving home wasn't just travel. It was separation from comfort, from language rhythms that felt natural, from food that tasted like memory, from routines that made each day predictable. What sounds like opportunity from the outside actually feels like disorientation from the inside. New environment, new expectations, new pressure to justify the sacrifice that already happened. And the most unsettling part, there is no guarantee that any of it will work. That's what makes the decision so heavy. You don't give up normal life because success is certain. You give it up for a possibility, a probability so small, most people would never risk everything for it. But once that step is taken, turning back no longer feels simple. Because returning would mean admitting the sacrifice didn't transform into something greater. The environment she entered was not designed to comfort. It was designed to refine. Every day structured, every action evaluated, every weakness exposed under constant repetition. Improvement is not encouraged gently. It is demanded through pressure that never completely disappears. And the emotional experience of that environment is something few people ever talk about, the quiet realization that you are surrounded by others who sacrifice just as much, who want the same limited opportunities, who are improving at the same relentless pace. That creates a silent intensity that never needs to be spoken out loud. You feel it in the atmosphere, in the training sessions, in the expectation that standing still means falling behind. And somewhere inside that realization, a deeper awareness forms. This is not temporary effort. This is a long-term transformation. And the person who entered this environment will not be the same person who eventually leaves it. The human body is incredibly adaptable, but only if it is pushed repeatedly past what once felt like its limit. Daily training at this level doesn't feel motivational. It feels demanding in a way that reshapes how pain is interpreted. Muscle fatigue stops being a warning and becomes background noise. Repetition stops feeling boring and starts feeling necessary. Movement is analyzed, corrected, repeated again, refined again, repeated again, hundreds of times until precision replaces instinct. And then comes conditioning, explosive movement, endurance building, strength development, forcing the body to respond faster, faster, last longer, absorb more impact, recover more efficiently. But the most overlooked part isn't the exertion, it's the recovery required to survive the exertion. Structured recovery sessions, treatment routines, mobility work, not optional, essential. Because without recovery, progress collapses. The body isn't simply used, it is managed, maintained, monitored, and constantly repaired like a system that cannot afford downtime. Now imagine experiencing all of that physical strain and still being expected to function intellectually at full capacity. That requires a level of mental control most adults never learn. Concentration cannot depend on comfort, it must exist, even in exhaustion. Focus cannot rely on motivation. It must operate through discipline alone. That means shifting from physical intensity to academic precision within the same day, repeatedly, without emotional spillover. And this is where mental compartmentalization becomes survival, the ability to place physical fatigue in one mental space and academic responsibility in another, never allowing them to collide. Because if they collide, everything collapses. And over time, this constant switching strengthens mental endurance the same way training strengthens the body, by forcing adaptation under pressure. While other teenagers explored identity through freedom, social connection, and spontaneous experiences, her identity was built through structure and repetition. The rhythm of life became predictable in a way most people never experience. Wake, train, recover, study, repeat. Social moments limited, leisure measured, energy preserved for performance. And slowly, almost invisibly, a different understanding of time forms. Time is not something to spend. It is something to invest. Moments are not evaluated by enjoyment, but by usefulness. And that shift changes perspective permanently. Because once life is measured through performance, ordinary experiences begin to feel secondary, even when they are meaningful. Yet even inside such intense structure, small personal rituals become powerful anchors. Moments that restore identity beyond performance. Small acts of self-presentation, simple routines that provide emotional stability, habits that create familiarity in an environment built on constant challenge. These rituals might seem insignificant from the outside, but psychologically they are essential. They provide control when everything else is demanding, predictability when pressure feels unpredictable, grounding when expectations feel overwhelming. And sometimes, maintaining those small human details becomes just as important as maintaining physical conditioning, because performance cannot survive long if identity disappears completely. Long before global attention, before recognition, before expectations intensified, there were foundational lessons shaping resilience. Discipline practiced daily, humility reinforced consistently, respect for effort emphasized repeatedly. Those early teachings form something deeper than motivation. They form stability. And stability is what allows someone to face continuous pressure without losing emotional balance. Instead of resisting discomfort, it becomes something to work through. Instead of fearing fatigue, it becomes evidence of progress. Instead of avoiding difficulty, it becomes something to engage directly. That mindset transforms challenge from threat into fuel. And once that transformation happens, endurance becomes sustainable. So now, when you picture success, the image changes. The polished visuals remain. But behind them, you can now see the structure holding everything together. Early mornings that begin before motivation appears, repetition that continues long after energy fades, decisions shaped by discipline rather than desire, sacrifices that never fully reverse. What looks effortless from the outside is actually built on continuous effort that rarely becomes visible. And that realization changes the meaning of achievement, because success is no longer just the moment of victory. It is the accumulation of every invisible decision made long before that moment arrived. And once you truly understand that, the question becomes unavoidable, not whether greatness is impressive, but whether you would ever be willing to live the life required to reach it.